I'm Revathi Vongsiprasom. I am originally from New York. I was born upstate in Buffalo, July 22nd, 1989. I'm the immigration attorney here in Sioux City, and then I'm also the Associate Dean of Inclusion here at Western Iowa Tech. You know, just for context, immigration law is only created by Congress and the president. So at that point in time, under President Trump, we just had massive changes to immigration law so frequently that it became very difficult as practitioners to keep up to date. So it was just kind of a frantic time to be practicing. And then little did we know, really, the United States did not know that the world had already started shutting down. You know, I remember I was in Miami in January of 2020, and I started getting calls from clients. Embassies are shutting down. My family's stuck. What's going on? And I had no idea. And I found out a few weeks later, right? COVID-19. But then in the news here, I'm not hearing anything. You know, I remember distinctively when I came back from Miami in January of 2020, I got very sick. And I had asked the nurse practitioner at this time in urgent care, I said, she said she's going to test me for flu A, flu B, strep. And I said, okay, can you also test me for COVID? And she just looked at me. She's like, what is COVID? Suddenly people, you know, embassies are closing. People are not being able to go to their embassy appointments, right, for their visa interviews. And it's panic because you've waited years to get this visa interview. And I remember having a client whose wife and 8 children were stuck. And this individual worked every hour of the day except maybe 3 to 5 hours, right? Because you have to show financial capability to bring family here. First of all, to get an embassy interview, right? A visa interview for this many people in and of itself is a feat because of scheduling availability. We finally are getting there, and then COVID erupts and everything is at a standstill. And this man hasn't, you know, he goes back and visits. His family is in a refugee camp, but he has essentially missed out on 10 years of life with his wife and his kids. And so the feeling of despair when the world comes to a crashing halt, it's hard to explain. When that husband finally got notice that his family was coming, and that moment of elation when he sees them makes everything worth it. But it also highlights the heartbreak that he felt the last 3 years, not knowing if he was ever going to see them again. Mm-hmm. What I gained was more time for myself, more time for my son, greater life stability. I mean, that's probably the closest I got to the magic of work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And do I feel guilty for that? Absolutely, right? Because that's a center of privilege, right? My clients didn't always have that. A lot of my clients work in the meatpacking industries, right? They're still going to work. They're at risk. They're getting sick with COVID, trying to still send money back home to sustain their families who are also getting sick from COVID and don't have adequate medical treatment, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of emotional rectification there, right? It's almost kind of like survivor's guilt. And, you know, we got to do all the fun things that I work hard to provide my son for, right? Mm-hmm. And we would ride our bikes every day. We would go dinosaur hunting, which was really like looking for turkey paw prints. I had a client in deportation proceedings that is a mother and child. And the child is the same age as my child. The mother is the same age as myself, right? All with the same goals and aspirations, right? We want to do what's best for our children. We want to create a life that is the best possible life for our children and doesn't emulate the negative parts of our life that we want to leave behind, right? And that deportation case is not going to be successful because of the changes in immigration law. And I remember coming home to my son that night, and I was just a hot mess. I was crying, and my son asked me, he's like, what's going on? And I just said, I had a hard day at work. And he said, okay, Mommy, you want to talk to me about it? I said, Mommy can't change the way that things are right now to help people I want to help. And he said, okay, just don't give up. I know it's hard, but don't give up.
Support for Facing a Changed World, an oral history of the COVID-19 pandemic, comes from the Margaret Ann Martin Everest Foundation, the Kind World Foundation, Humanities Iowa, the Friends of Siouxland Public Media, and listeners like you.